Hey everybody, I'm Philip,
And I'm Justin.
and together we are pajamas. And this is our audio review of the movie Antlers, which we just finished watching a few minutes ago. Goes without saying, spoilers, obviously, from here on. So, what did you think?
It was amazing. I really liked its portrayal of the Wendigo.
Yeah, it was a really neat take on the Wendigo story.
Indeed.
Pretty cool. It was based on a short story called Quiet Boy. I've always liked the Wendigo mythos. So when it's explored in a good way, I mean, there was a movie called Wendigo that was awful, but stuff like this does it in a really, really good way.
And it's true to the mythos in that, yes, it originates from someone that, desperate for hunger, commits cannibalism and then transforms into this figure.
Right, right. So yeah, it was very cool. It kept accurate to the source material.
I actually do feel bad, even though it's portrayed as the antagonist in this film, I actually do feel very sorry for it. Consider that it's hungry, so
Yeah.
it's going to try to satiate its appetite. But every time that it does, it only gets weaker and more hungry.
Yeah.
Imagine having to go through that. It does make me actually sympathize with it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a curse. Like it was definitely like a creature movie, but it was also grounded enough in like a reality. Like it took place in Oregon. We had our typical, Native American character who knew the lore and, that stuff, which is fine. Sometimes that kind of, I think
There's, there's nothing wrong with the character of the wise old man.
no, but it's always like the one Native American in the movie is always like the one that had like, oh, I happen to have the book of my people. It worked here. I think sometimes it's overdone a little bit. If there were like a bunch of Native Americans in the movie, cool. One of them just happened to be like a shaman type of the tribe and whatnot. But like he had one Native American friend. I guess the old police chief, I think. And yeah, he was the exposition for the story of the Wendigo for us.
It does actually work in this case, in that if the child isn't a native yet is so knowledgeable of this, it would mean that there's actually much more than him simply divulging into his cultural heritage.
Yeah, yeah.
That there is perhaps, and with all these pictures, that there is actually something going on with him.
Yeah, and that's why it worked, because at least they played off of, when he asked, is the child native? And they said no. He's like, well, he should not be privy to this because he didn't have the magic book
And
in his house.
he somehow even knew of the talismans,
Yeah.
which actually I'm not sure are part of the culture. I'll actually have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, I thought it was a little strange. I wrote it in my notes, I think, that I'm assuming the talismans were to keep the Wendigo at bay. So if the Wendigo gets free, why would it go back into the mine past the talismans where it would be once again be held at bay?
Yes, I was. It's actually something that I also wondered. Do they work only sometimes? Does it only work in the daytime or only in the nighttime?
Yeah.
Does it have to be any form of moon except for the full moon or
Yeah.
the new moon?
There you go. So
I'm
yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what the story is behind the talismans or exactly what they're supposed to be used for. He said that they're wards, but they don't seem to be very good at warding.
Yeah, especially if it goes back to the mine, back past the talismans. It's like if you get out of jail, then you go back into jail. Like it was just like you're free, go roam, and you have your other son now. Go roam the Oregon countryside and find yourself a new hiding spot. And
Maybe there's some sort of shamanic reason that they didn't work because, well, as was stated, he's not a native, so it's very likely that he isn't even a shaman who would probably know how to make a proper ward. There's probably some sort of ritual or some sort of incantation that's
I
used.
would I would assume that obviously the a native people put those words there. Like
Yes,
like they knew of its existence and were like, you need to stay here.
yes, the ones in the mine, I would think. And, well, actually, maybe the one that was in the house was probably one of the ones that were taken out of the mine and put onto the door.
Yeah, maybe, but they never really showed where that came from. It was just there. So I don't know. I think kind of a missed opportunity to explain what those were about and what they did and how they got one in the house and all that stuff. But it's all right. It's all right. I just thought it was kind of odd that it went back to past the wards, past the talismans, into the mine again at the end. I thought it was all right overall. Like I wasn't like blown away. I thought it was very well lit. Like there was some good lighting in the movie. Like the scene where Lucas was in the bedroom, and it was just like one light, or the scene where he's like chopping up whatever he was to give to the dad. It was also like, very well lit when he was in that barn area or whatever. So I thought that was very well done. And like when the brother that was a police officer was talking to the other police officer, and they were like being lit by like the police cars. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just the lighting was really well done, I thought, in the movie. That was one of the strengths. That's really all there really is to the movie. Like, dad is a meth maker, and they're making meth in this mine that's supposed to be abandoned for a little while longer before the mining people come back in and get attacked by the Wendigo because they went past the talismans. So if you see talismans hanging up in a mine, just leave them. Just don't go any farther. Just turn around.
Maybe by going past them, they somehow broke what was some sort of barrier.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
That they were weakened somehow.
Yeah, that could be. And so, yeah, the dad's infected. The brother is afflicted somehow, which was very, I like that they kept that a secret, or kept that, like, in the dark until the end. I like the idea of the oldest brother coming home to this. This is pretty intense. Like, he had to deal with this.
It showed how much love he does have for them, that he's even willing to do these rather graphic things and go through these possible moments of abuse, physical abuse.
And psychological abuse.
Yes.
Jesus. Yeah.
Which shows that he's willing to go through that because he ultimately really loves them. I like that.
And then, yeah, the dad changes.
And it's a great portrayal of the Wendigo. It didn't look like someone in a costume or a cheap CGI.
Yeah, agreed.
The Wendigo looked magnificent.
It looked really good, yeah. When we finally got to like see it in its form, because then the one principal lady or whatever goes to the house, gets attacked. And apparently that's enough for the Wendigo to burst out of the dad. Which is interesting then, because like how it passes on from person to person. Because obviously they found the first guy from the beginning, not the dad, but the other one, in the woods, busted open. So obviously the Wendigo was inside of him until it busted open and then went to the dad. But if he busted open, then that should be the Wendigo coming out, right? But then how did it get into the dad?
Somehow through some sort of spiritualism, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, because the Wendigo didn't start beating in Aiden until new dad was dead. His heart was taken out. Then it got passed on. So one would think if that was going to happen to... It's just like, how was the transference from dad's friend to dad happen? Unless I'm reading the situation wrong in the woods with the first guy, but it was the same exact like husk busted open shell kind of thing that was found in the attic area when they found the dad's body. When we saw that scene where like it was coming out of his mouth, and then... So I was kind of like, well, how did that...
It, like the wise man said, that once it's taken out, it then goes to a new host because it somehow had its heart taken out and now it must...
No. It didn't have its heart taken in the woods. Wendigo came out of Guy. So what we saw as Wendigo at the end should have already been in the woods from that guy. There should already be Wendigo walking around. What happened to that Wendigo for it to pass on to the next person, which was the dad?
That is the mystery. I'm guessing that maybe... some random hunter maybe. Found it and then somehow knew to take its heart out.
It's a very wise hunter.
Or maybe it was an extremely hungry bear or a cougar. That is a very good question. Or it shows that maybe it's to add a little bit of suspense that there isn't only one, there's another.
Yeah, that's true.
And another.
Yeah.
He did mention that it's like a curse. What for? And well... It did show that, yes, and this is a message of environmentalism. It showed, why would the spirits be angry? Well, here's the landscape of their domain that is destroyed from this coal mining.
Yeah.
So-called clean coal, which was in propaganda called clean despite that anyone that breathes it in will end up with severe breathing problems. You even see them with gas masks when they go into the mine.
Yeah.
Which should probably give a clue that maybe this isn't really a good idea.
Just a little bit. We finally see the Wendigo and it's full. Or like we see it a little bit at night when it's at the siblings' house. But even then, it's just like antlers, and and there was such a really good portrayal of like Gord impaled the one cop and then was attacking the brother. But then we get to the mine. That's when we see it. And it's like, it had that silhouette when it had its mouth open and his tongue was hanging out, and had like the dad's face was still stuck on there,
which it then peeled off as if it was some sort of sheet mask.
Yeah. So as you said, the creature design was fantastic. Dear anyone who makes Stephen King's It in the future, this is what it should look like when you fight a thing and take its heart out. It should not be what we got in either of the adaptations. And then, we get to the end and, the curse is passed on.
Yes, and it probably will continue to.
Mm-hmm. So, the brother now has it. And he even says, I think I have it in my notes, I'll say it now. He even says, because we're talking about what are we going to do with the boy, because they pretty much taken Lucas. Because it's like taking a tiger cub. You don't know what it's going to grow up to be. And then...
How ironic that he's the one who said that.
But then, no, what's more ironic is he says, do you think you could kill something you love? He says that to the sister. You think he's talking about Lucas, but then he starts coughing and that brownish, viscous stuff, whatever, that brownish liquid is, being coughed up and it's coming out of his eyes and stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, well,
at least it's a good thing that they have experience.
Yeah.
So they know how to approach this.
It's going to be like Sister Teacher, Wendigo Hunter. It's going to be the sequel, the spin-off series. And they left it open if they want to do a sequel to it. It's there. I don't know if the writer, who I think also contributed to screenplay, if they've written a sequel, but if they didn't, they could easily, I won't say easily, but they could provide a part 2 to it.
Oh, like maybe that it then becomes so much of an issue that it even reaches beyond the mountainous area.
Maybe. I think they should keep it where it's at, though, for now. It worked because of the area and the intimacy of just having, like, small town, few people involved. And I'll reference it when we get to my notes. But they did certain things like that really well, and they used the locale perfectly, I thought.
Oh, yes, it did. It definitely gave it that natural look, which, considering that it's Native American folklore, it actually does suit the film to have that kind of setting.
Yes, exactly. Which is, as I said, I was glad it took place in Oregon with, all the surroundings and stuff like that. All right, want to go to the notes?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, welcome to Daddy's Deep Underground Coal Mining Meth Lab.
Why bring the child at all in the first place? Was he picking him up and had to make a quick stop here for business reasons and then continue?
Yeah. Well, they said they were going to pick up Aiden when they were done, so maybe he got out of school earlier. Is that his brother? I don't know. Initially, I was wondering why the dad had changed, but the son hadn't. So I thought they did a good job of that mystery. Like, what's really going on here? Like, obviously the dad was sick. Something was happening. He was changing into something. But the son was just... He looked sick. He didn't look well, but he was still human. His eyes were normal. He wasn't crazed.
Yes, for a moment I thought that he's still in the beginning stages and he too will become a separate Wendigo. Yeah. That's what I thought at first.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Because I was like, that's the only reason I could think of that it wasn't killing him. The son, like what you were thinking, like it's a slower transition or something.
Yes,
but it was cool that it was like we didn't know they didn't hammer us over the head with like all the stuff. They kind of let it build, which I liked. I thought that the actor that played Lucas was cast really well. I thought he did a really good job. I like the line that the sister says to the brother, that everyone thinks their problems are going to go away and we know they don't. Yeah, creepy subplot of like the abuse they'd suffered from their father. But it
gave her motivation to actually go through these things because she thought She already had her childhood ruined. She isn't
Yeah.
going to let another child have their lives ruined.
Yeah. And it gave her like the driving force too. So it made sense as to why the character would be so motivated and gung ho to want to do something about this because she saw the signs.
Yes.
And then we see Lucas like have to go home and take the carcass and get it ready and feed the dad and talk to the brother and then just sit in his room and try and ignore it all. And I was like, imagine that burden every single day. And then you go to school and you get bullied on top of all of that.
Yes, you have to pretend that everything isn't happening, even though it is.
Yeah. I don't have IMDb up so much. I keep calling them like the sister and the brother. When the sister is talking to the principal,
Mhm.
and the principal's like, we can't diagnose we can't diagnose abuse. This isn't. She's like, I can do that. I can try and talk to the dad, that kind of thing, saying that kids are homeschooled because they will come to school smelling like meth, and then the parents will be in trouble. And the sister says, this is a cry for help. Take it from someone who can diagnose abuse. I was like, again, good line, calling back on her own personal history.
I could see it from both sides that this could simply be a misunderstanding, but at the same time, when I see him, I also see myself. This cannot simply be a collection of coincidences.
Yeah. And then we get that scene where Lucas gives Aiden some food, and Aiden's like, yum, 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 yum. And then he starts coughing it up, like, spitting it back out. And I was trying to figure out the connection between the son and the dad. Because the son is eating people food, gets sick, and then the dad was glowing. And I was like, what is going on? Like, it was, again, really well done as far as, like, they weren't hiding much of anything that was going on. They also weren't telling us everything that was going on, which I thought was a nice balance. There's a lot of, I even called this Antlers, aka No One Calls for Backup, the movie. If I were the principal, the minute I walked into that house and I started gagging, nope, walk back out. Let's call somebody.
That is something that I was wondering about. Not only the principal, but also the teacher. You weren't invited in. You're trespassing. You're, as far as the law may know, you're the ones that are at fault.
Yeah.
And, well, fortunately, yes, they would have noticed those disturbing signs. And, yes, this is not their expertise. This is something for maybe Child Protective Services or something like that.
Right. And then we had a lot more back and forth between the sister and the brother. Like, the sister's trauma was really coming to the surface because she's back in the house that she grew up in and where the abuse was suffered. Then, they have this moment and he says to her, you have no idea what he did to me. And I was like, whew. Like, he chose to compartmentalize, internalize, and she ran away. So it's interesting to see from the spectrum of abuse, because we kind of know what he did to her. We have no idea what he did to him. We can kind of infer what the dad did to him. But I thought that bringing that into the story, as we talked about, was good, and I thought they handled the siblings' trauma as a subplot really well.
Yes. Two different methods of trying to cope with the situation, and in both cases, it's still eating them from within.
Yeah. And then other cop guy arrives at their house, calls Paul. Paul is his name. Calls Paul. And he's like, Paul, I think he's in the shed. I'm like, maybe wait for backup. I'm shrugging. I'm like, maybe wait for backup. I like, soon after, the sister and Lucas are in the room together, and she's like, stay here. And she's looking out the window. And he's like, oh, he's going to come for me and take me to the mine. I like the juxtaposition of, she was terrified. He was not. I like that. That was really cool. Because normally in movies, like, everyone's like, you're huddled in a room and you're scared together. But, it was like fear and no fear. That was cool.
Yes.
Then after the attack, sister goes out and she's like, Paul, I have to move you. I'm like, call an ambulance. Will no one call anyone for anything? The principal doesn't call anybody. The police guy didn't call anybody. She's not calling anybody. Then she drags him to the car, puts him in the car, drives him to the mine.
And then finally
calls the ambulance saying like, oh, we're at the mine. Go pick up Paul. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, now are you calling an ambulance? Now? Okay.
While driving there, they could have called for possible backup if needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which they didn't. There was no backup. Like,
actually, yes, like you said, there were several situations that someone should have done that.
Yeah.
Calling for backup. Surround the area.
And then when she took the heart out of the Wendigo, and then you see that Aiden is starting to transform, and then she has to put him out of his misery. I wrote, now run before it passes on to you. Go. Run. One would think, if he's turning, take Lucas, run out of the mine. If the wards work, he should be stuck there now. One would think. I don't know. We don't know how the wards work, so. But yeah, that's not how it happened. And then when they're showing them, like, at the lake and everything, I'm like, if it were me, I think it would be time to move. Like, Oregon's pretty, but I just felt like, a folklorish, wood demon. I think it's time to move.
This place is too cursed for us to live in tranquility.
Yeah. Then we get that ending, possible sequel if they want to. But if not, it's a nice, open and shut thing as well. Those are all for my notes. Everything else are for my patrons over on Patreon. Overall, it's a decent watch.
Yes, indeed, I agree.
The only nitpicks I think that I had that we talked about were the wards not being explained or used in a way that was consistent.
Yes, it's as if they may as well have not been there, that they were there simply for aesthetics.
Yeah. And then no one calling for backup. Like no one called for backup of anything anywhere. So I'm assuming they're only a 2-person police force. And now one of them is dead and one of them's turning into a Wendigo.
Or maybe the fact that they're in such a small town, they aren't used to something like that. Oh, but then again, they have known drug people, so actually they should have some sort of protocol.
Drugging again. Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid that I don't have an explanation for that then.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. Well, it's going to wrap this one up. As always, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
They can't see you wave.
Imagine me waving to you in spirit.
There you go. But a good spirit, not a Wendigo spirit.
That's fair.